What is up, Fence fam? Welcome back to another reaction video. If you've watched the channel before, you know how this works. Jeremy and Braden have gone out and scoured the YouTubes looking for fence-related videos that they think that you guys might like to watch my reaction to. But first, a message from our sponsor. Guys, I'm so happy to announce that Nationwide Industries has come on as our reaction video sponsor. I'm really excited about this because we legitimately enjoy using Nationwide Industries products. Probably our favorite products to use are the Trident latch paired with a Cornerstone 2 hinge. When you pair those together, you get a very nice self-closing, self-latching gate. But we also like using their chain link hardware. Now, up to a couple months ago, I had no idea they offer chain link hardware, but they do, and it's pretty nice. The finish is really nice. It's clean right out of the box. We don't have to touch it up before taking it out on the job site, which makes our job a lot easier. For more information, check out Nationwide Industries for a full and complete catalog and to find a rep nearest you. All right, guys, so today's video is titled How to Fix a Sagging Fence Gate. Ask This Old House by the This Old House channel. If you'd like to watch the original video in its entirety, it will be linked in the description below. I like this subject. Leaning gates, sagging gates come up quite a bit, and it's a question I get asked all the time. Let's check out how Ask This Old House approaches a sagging gate.
Hey, Matt.
Tommy, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Great, thanks for coming out.
So is this the fence you wrote me about?
Yes, it is.
All right, so it's an interesting style fence. Not one I'm super familiar with. It looks like just built out of probably some custom lattice. Looks like thicker lattice than what you'd find at a home improvement store, but the entire fence and gate are made out of lattice. Interesting. I've seen this style before. It's probably up in maybe the Northeast. If you guys are familiar with where this style is most popular, let me know in the comments below.
You can see it's got a little bit of a sag.
Yeah.
We got some wiggle over here.
Yeah, looks like
That unsupported post that they're using for a latch, like you really have to support that thing somehow, or find a way to latch it to something a little bit more sturdy. That will continue to be a problem. I don't know that there is a fix for just what looks like it's probably at one point is a pressure treated pine post. You leave those unsecured, and they will twist and warp and do all sorts of neat and creative things.
you got a wobbly post here too.
Indeed.
I noticed that the lattice work is a little bit loose.
And this little cap keeps coming off.
Okay, well that's an easy fix. We can put a couple of nails in that. But let's look at this gate.
Okay.
All right, so this is a gate that it looks pretty nice, but I can actually see that it is sag.
Mm-hmm.
And it's built by 3 pieces to simulate a mortise and tenon joint. And I don't know if the gate is still square, but it looks like it's sagged a little bit, so we have to try to pull that back into position and straighten it up. And
Pretty common. I mean, the number one callback on fences are the gates. They're the part of the fence that gets used most often. Of the complaints, sagging and dragging has to be the top complaint.
definitely need to see what we can do about this post. If you're up for it, I'll get some tools and we can get started.
Sounds great.
All right,
Thanks.
I'll be right back. All right. Okay, you got it?
Got it.
All right. Want to figure out what's going on with this post.
Okay.
You're going to dig down and see what we have.
So, I mean, obviously, first impression is there's no concrete here. Now, there's currently a conversation going on in the fence community in regards to whether to use concrete or not when setting posts. There's a whole nother conversation in between concrete setting on wet set versus dry set. That is not what we're talking about today. But it looks like this post wasn't set with concrete at all. It was just set back into the dirt, which is why you're seeing so much rot here. There's absolutely no barrier between the surrounding ground and that wood post, which means that the microbes in the soil have free access to consume that post. I mean, it presents as rot, but it's really the microorganisms in the aerobic zone of the soil that are just making free use of that post for nutrition.
I see that there is a little bit of surface rot on the post below grade here, as you can see, and it looks like about a ½ an inch. It's actually still pretty solid down there. Quite frankly, I think you've got maybe 8 to 10 years left in the entire fence.
I think that's a bit generous. So there's quite a bit of that post missing. I mean, he was on site, so maybe it looks differently in video than it did in sight, but looks like quite a bit of that post is gone. It's lost quite a bit of the structure. Now, it's not holding up a really large gate. The fence, obviously, it being made out of lattice, isn't going to weigh a lot, so they can probably get by on repairing it, but I think at a minimum you'd want to replace that post. Just I think the lifespan he's giving the fence, I think, is being a bit generous, but who knows.
And it's going to be a lot more costly to replace the fence than just repair this post for now. So I could stiffen this up. You get another 8 to 10 years out of the fence, and then you replace the whole thing. It's your call.
Sure, if you can get the post to last to the end of the life of the fence, I think that makes sense to stiffen it up.
Now we're going to set the post, and we have to hold it plumb.
I'm good.
And hold it in position with a scrap piece of wood and a stake in the ground. I'm not going to set the post in concrete or gravel. Instead, I'm going to use a 2-part.
So this epoxy, this particular brand of this expanding foam epoxy business shows up in a lot of these nationwide home improvement shows. Now they don't list them as being sponsored, but that specific brand shows up in quite a lot of them. I actually did a review video of that product. I'd be interested to see his results. The results we saw were that it didn't fill the hole. It actually ended up contracting or constricting in on itself, leaving the post wobbly. But be interested to see what this show comes up with.
Expanding foam. I'll break the seal and mix it over my knee for about 15 seconds. Once the foam expands and hardens, it will secure the post in place. And it takes about an hour to 2 hours for it to set, depends on the temperature outside. While that's setting up, we can work on this gate.
That looked like a really big hole for one bag. If you are going to use that, I think the hole we drilled was like a 6-inch hole, and it didn't fill that hole completely. You would, on a size hole that big, on that big of a size hole, you'd probably likely look at 2 bags, which means this repair is getting incredibly expensive.
Now I know that it's out of square. Just by looking at the squares in the lattice work, I can see that they've turned into a parallelogram because that side of the gate is sagged. But a good way to check that is we're going to measure diagonally to see if that number is equal. Before we measure the diagonals, we want to make sure that the gate is parallel in both directions. That measurement needs to match this measurement, which it does. And that measurement equals the other side. So it's a parallelogram. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure from inside this corner. I'm going to hold my tape. Now you have to make sure that you hold that position of that tape in the same orientation when you go to that corner.
Got it.
So I'll check the measurement here. I've got 53. This one here is 52. The other side was 53. The difference is 1.
It's a pretty good way of checking square just in the field. It doesn't require an actual square to check square. It's a nice way to double check your measurements on site. We actually do that on new gates too to make sure that the gate doesn't fall too much as we're hanging it. We use steel frame gates with steel posts, so we know when we go out that it's not going to fall, but it's always good just to check and make sure before walking away. Now this gate's a wood frame, obviously, so which is why you're seeing the sagging. For future gates, I think it would be good for them to probably look at a steel frame gate, but this one is matching the existing fence, and I think the point of the video is to show how to repair it rather than actually evaluate this site.
1 inch, divide that in half. That means that the gate is about a ½ an inch out of square. We have to raise this side up. Let me show you with a framing square what I mean.
Okay.
So I take the framing square and I hold it on the bottom tight right here. And I hold it so it hits right here. See the space?
Yep.
It's out of square. What I want to do is I need to pull this side up. And I'm going to try to do that with a clamp. By putting the clamp diagonally from corner to corner and tightening it, I should be able to pull it up. But I don't want to damage the wood, so I made a couple of blocks to fit in the corner that will go under the clamp.
So if you don't have one of these clamps available, they actually make kits that are going to do what this does. And they make a gate repair kit that you can find at most home improvement stores that will basically attach a cable to either corner and allow you to tighten that cable, bringing it back up into square. It also gives it additional support for the future. But if you have a clamp, by all means, this is probably an arguably maybe a better way, but maybe less permanent.
Put it in the corner. Move the clamp up tight to the block. By tightening the diagonal, that should be pulling that side up. Let's take a quick measurement, see how it is. Go right under the clamp. Hold it in the same orientation that you did before. Right now, I'm 52 5/8. I'm an 1/8 of an inch too high.
Okay.
And that's what I'm going to keep it. I want to be a little bit too high so it'll settle down.
That's a fantastic point. You know, a lot of times new gate builders will make the gate perfectly square, and then just by nature, gravity takes over either at the time of hanging or over time, and will slowly draw that gate down. I mean, you see this even in steel frame gates. So we like to make ours a little bit high as well so that gravity over time brings it back down into square and true.
Makes sense.
To hold the gate square, I've made these brackets, and we'll screw them in the corner, and that will add to the stability of the gate.
I like that it also adds a decorative touch. So the method I had mentioned earlier from the home improvement stores, it's obviously very apparent that that gate was repaired. You see the cable left installed on the gate. It does provide it maybe more support long term, but it certainly doesn't look this nice.
Okay.
Perfect. I want to put a couple screws in the corners also, just to be on the safe side. Once the foam is cured.
See, there's no way one bag filled up that big of a hole. He probably used one bag on each side, which, you know, works. But like I said, we dug a 6-inch in diameter hole, 2 foot deep, and one bag filled it up maybe 3/4 of the way. Now, it could be that they're obviously in a different region, so maybe the product reacts differently in different areas. Of course, as he mentioned, the temperature is important, the soil moisture content is important, but it is interesting to see the hole that full, supposedly using one bag.
I'm going to cover the top with about 6 inches of soil. We're going to tighten up the lattice on the fence using a 1/4 crown staple, 1 inch long. And also reattach that cap to the post. We'll tip it up. Let me get a screw. I got it right here. Take it to you.
Now, a lot of times we'll perform this type of repair with the gate still in place. We'll simply block it up at the end that supports the post, and then bring it back into square without taking it off the post. What we've found is that a lot of times by taking the gate off the post and then trying to put it back on, it won't fit. You've sprung the tension on the gate post itself. But for the purposes of this show, it was probably important to take it off so that he could illustrate it. But a lot of times, my point being, a lot of times these repairs can be done with the gate in place so that you're sure that it fits the opening exactly as you repair it.
Watch your fingers there. Get on the inside. There it is. All right, come a little past that post. Down. Right there with that one. All right, so what I did is I cut this block to fit the corner of the house. I measured the gap that you had there. That's about 1/2 inch, so that's a little bit less.
Okay.
So we're gonna pull the post out. Put that against the concrete. I want to line it up like that and hold the post tight. All right, Matt, everything's fixed up.
So I'm guessing that showed that they actually attached the post to the house. For a short-term fix, that probably works. I'm not generally a fan of attaching, whether it's gate posts or fence posts, attaching posts themselves to the house. I think it could introduce more problems than it's worth. You get into, breaking the moisture barrier of the house with the screw. Did he properly seal that puncture after or while the lag bolt was going in? I mean, who knows? I'm generally not a fan, but in this, like I said, I think they're just trying to illustrate how one could be repaired. Generally not a fan of puncturing siding or any sort of siding on a house with any sort of screw or nail. I think it could present more problems than it's worth.
Good as new. Looks good, nice and solid. What do you think?
Looks great, Tommy. Much sturdier than before. It's got no sag.
Yeah, the gate works, everything else.
I really like these brackets that you made. That's a nice detail.
Nice detail, but it's structural. Now these will weather and they'll probably blend in with the wood, probably take a year or so, but you'll never notice them.
Excellent.
All right, well, I'm glad I could help.
Thank you very much, Tommy. I appreciate it.
Overall, I think the repair went really well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. For now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. And I'll catch you next time.